Get out. I don't care what prescription you think you have. Officer Derek Malloy shoved Evelyn Carter backward against the glass door of Health Plus Pharmacy before the white pharmacy bag could stop swinging from her wrist. She was a 72-year-old black grandmother in a faded brown coat and soft walking shoes, and he looked at her like she was trouble dressed as poverty. The plastic bag tore. An orange pill bottle struck the sidewalk with a hard little crack. Customers froze. Dr. Lena Brooks went still behind the counter. A teenager's phone rose, trembling. Evelyn steadied one palm against the glass and said, "My husband needs that medication." Beneath the spilled receipt, a sealed white envelope flashed 3 small words no one understood yet. Civil Rights Division. Malloy stepped closer, filling the space in front of her like his badge had made him taller. His hand rested near the cuffs on his belt, not touching them, just close enough to make the message clear. The pharmacy's automatic doors whispered open behind Evelyn, then closed again when nobody moved. The little bell above them gave one weak chime, almost embarrassed to make noise. Evelyn's shoulder had hit the glass hard enough to leave a pale handprint where she caught herself. She looked down at the bottle near the curb. The label faced up. Thomas Carter. Take 1 tablet twice daily. Morning dose. Her husband's name sat there in black ink for everyone to see, and still no one bent to pick it up. Have you ever watched someone be judged guilty before anyone even asked their name? Malloy clicked his tongue and leaned down toward her face. You were told to move along. Evelyn's eyes lifted to his badge, then to the body camera on his chest. The little red light blinked once. Twice. Officer, she said quietly, am I being detained, or are you ordering me off a public sidewalk? Something shifted in the crowd. Not support, not courage, not yet. Just a tiny break in the certainty. The teenager's phone rose a little higher. Dr. Brooks pressed one hand flat against the inside of the glass, as if the window itself were keeping her from doing the right thing. Malloy smiled, but did not reach his eyes. Listen to her, he said loudly, turning so everyone near the entrance could hear. Now she wants to teach me the law. A man in a gray suit beside the newspaper box gave a nervous laugh, then swallowed it when Evelyn did not flinch. Malloy reached down, picked up the pill bottle, and turned it between 2 fingers like it was evidence instead of medicine. You pay for this? Evelyn held up the crumpled receipt, still pinched in her left hand. It was filled inside. Dr. Brooks can confirm. Malloy did not look toward the pharmacist. He looked at Evelyn's coat, her worn purse, the scuffed toes of her shoes, the lines around her mouth from years of swallowing more than she said. Receipts can be faked. A murmur passed through the small crowd. The words were absurd, but the uniform made them dangerous. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the torn pharmacy bag. Not around her purse, not around her keys, around the bag. Inside it, beneath a box of heart medication and a folded medication guide, the white envelope had slid halfway out of its sleeve. Malloy noticed the movement. His gaze dropped. Evelyn calmly moved her hand over the opening. Please don't touch that. The softness of her voice seemed to irritate him more than defiance would have. You don't give orders here. He snatched the bag again, harder this time. The plastic handle cut into Evelyn's skin. Her knees bent, but she stayed upright. The glass behind her rattled. A woman gasped. The teenager whispered, "Man, she's old." But he did not step forward. No one did. That was the worst part. Not the force. Not the badge. The watching. The way decent people became statues when authority raised its voice. Malloy tugged the bag free and dumped part of its contents into his palm. The receipt fluttered down. The medication guide opened like a wounded bird. Then the white envelope slid out and landed between his boots, clean and sealed, with a red mark across one edge. Evelyn's face changed for the first time. Not fear, calculation, pain held behind discipline. Malloy saw the look and mistook it for guilt. He bent slowly, 2 fingers reaching for the envelope. Well, he said, his voice dropping low enough that the first row of bystanders leaned in despite themselves. What is this? The sealed white envelope between Malloy's boots had been warm from Evelyn Carter's palm just 4 hours earlier. It had rested beside a chipped blue coffee mug, a half-empty pill organizer, and the last orange bottle with Thomas Carter's name printed on it in fading black ink. In the kitchen, the morning light came through thin curtains and made everything look softer than it was. The linoleum was worn pale near the sink. The refrigerator hummed too loudly. A gospel station played low from an old radio Evelyn refused to replace because Thomas liked the crackle between songs. She stood at the counter in her house shoes, counting pills into the little plastic compartments marked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Her fingers were steady, but slower than they used to be. One tablet left in the heart bottle. One. Thomas sat at the small table by the window, a blanket over his knees though the house was not cold. He tried to fold the newspaper with both hands and failed when a cough caught him in the chest. Evelyn looked up immediately. He smiled before she could worry. "Don't start looking at me like that, Evie." She closed the pill organizer with a soft click. "Then don't scare me before breakfast." I was breathing dramatic. Keeps the marriage interesting. She gave him the smallest smile, the kind that still belonged to the woman who had married him 48 years ago, before hospital bills, before sleepless nights, before a city could change around them and still leave their little kitchen exactly the same. On the wall above the table hung a photograph from another life. Evelyn in a white nurse's uniform, Thomas beside her in a brown suit, their son Nathan between them at 15, all elbows and shy pride. Evelyn reached to straighten the frame, though it was already straight. Beside the coffee mug lay the envelope. Clean. Sealed. Too official for that kitchen. Thomas saw her eyes fall to it. His teasing faded. "You still meeting them today?" Evelyn kept her hand on the picture frame a second longer. "After I get you medicine." "Evie," I said after. Not sharp, not angry. Final. Thomas looked toward the envelope, then toward the empty pill bottle. "You could let somebody else carry that." Evelyn picked up the bottle and turned it so the label faced her palm. Somebody else already tried. The room went quiet. Outside, a bus hissed at the corner. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's television laughed too loudly. Thomas lowered the newspaper. "Nathan called last night." Evelyn did not turn. "I know. He still worries. He should worry about his own children. He worries because he remembers." That made her hand pause. A memory moved through the kitchen without permission. Blue lights washing over their son's face years ago. His hands spread on the hood of a car he had paid for himself. An officer calling him boy, though he was 31. A complaint filed. A complaint dismissed. A mother learning that paperwork could be buried deeper than grief if the right people held the shovel. Evelyn slid the empty bottle into her purse. Then she placed the envelope inside the pharmacy bag she had folded from the night before, not on top where anyone curious could see it, but not hidden so deep she could not reach it. Have you ever carried something small that felt heavier than your own fear? Evelyn had. She had carried grocery bags home after double shifts. She had carried Thomas through bad nights when his breath came thin and frightening. She had carried silence when speaking would have made her family a target. But this envelope was different. It was not revenge. It was a promise. At 8:17, her phone vibrated on the counter. No name, just a number she had been told to save without saving. She read the message once. Then again, "Keep the original with you. Do not bend it. Meet point remains near Health Plus after pickup." Evelyn locked the screen before Thomas could read over her shoulder. He knew anyway. "You don't have to be brave every minute," he said. She slipped into her faded brown coat, the one with a loose button at the wrist. "I'm not being brave." She took her purse, the empty bottle, and the folded pharmacy bag. "I'm being tired." Thomas reached for her hand. His skin was warm but fragile, paper over a pulse. "Tired of what?" Evelyn looked at the old photograph, then at the front door. "Tired of watching them decide who gets believed." She kissed his forehead, gentle enough not to disturb him, and stepped into the hallway. The building smelled like bleach and fried onions. Mrs. Alvarez from 2B watched through her cracked door, eyes dropping to Evelyn's worn shoes, then to the pharmacy bag. Evelyn nodded anyway. At the bottom of the stairs, her phone vibrated once more. Same unknown number. "We are 5 blocks away." The message stayed glowing on Evelyn Carter's phone while the bus driver looked past her and spoke to the young man behind her instead. "You getting on, ma'am?" Or, just standing there?" he asked without meeting her eyes. Evelyn had one hand on the rail, the other around the folded pharmacy bag inside her purse. And for 1 second, every person behind her seemed to decide she was the delay. A woman with a yoga mat sighed. A man in a tailored coat stepped around her like she was a trash can left too close to the curb. Evelyn moved up the step, tapped her card, and took the first empty seat near the front. Nobody saw the unknown number. Nobody saw her thumb lock the screen before the words could be read again. "We're 5 blocks away." The bus pulled from the curb with a tired groan, carrying her through a neighborhood that had learned to change its face without changing its heart. The old barber shop on Colby Avenue was gone now, its striped pole removed, the windows covered with paper that promised luxury retail coming soon. The church thrift store had become a boutique that sold plain white shirts for $80. The laundromat where mothers used to fold school uniforms was now a glass-fronted juice bar with plants hanging from the ceiling and a sign that said Community Wellness in gold letters. Evelyn watched it all pass through the scratched bus window. She had lived here long enough to know what words like community meant when the people who built it could no longer afford to stand on the sidewalk. At the next stop, an older man with a cane climbed on too slowly. His hand shook as he searched for change. The driver sighed again. "Sir, you need to have your fare ready." A few riders looked down at their phones, relieved the embarrassment belonged to someone else now. Evelyn reached into her coat pocket, found the folded emergency 5 Thomas always insisted she carry, and slid into the fare box before the man could apologize. "He's with me," she said. The driver frowned, but the machine beeped green. The man looked at her with wet eyes. "Thank you, sister." Evelyn only nodded and shifted her purse closer to her side. The pharmacy bag crackled softly inside it. $5 gone. One promise still with her. 2 blocks from Health Plus, the bus slowed beside a patrol car parked half on the curb. Officer Derek Malloy stood near the entrance of a new coffee shop, one thumb hooked his belt, the other hand pointing at a homeless veteran sitting against a brick wall with a cardboard sign folded beside his knee. Evelyn could not hear every word through the bus glass, but she knew the shape of the scene. The officer leaning down, the man looking up, the customers pretending not to watch while watching through reflection. Malloy nudged the veteran's duffel bag with the toe of his boot. Not hard enough to be called violence, just hard enough to say who owned the space. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Her eyes moved to the badge number on Malloy's chest. 4172. She did not write it down. She did not need to. Some numbers stayed in the body. A young woman at the coffee shop door lifted her phone, then lowered it when Malloy glanced her way. The veteran tried to gather his things. One of his pill bottles rolled from the duffel, tapped the curb, and spun in a small circle. Evelyn's hand went to her purse before she could stop herself. The shape of Thomas's empty bottle pressed against her palm. The bus moved on. At the corner, the driver called her stop without looking back. Health Plus. Evelyn stood. The man with the cane tried to rise and let her pass, but she touched his shoulder gently. "Stay seated." Outside, the air smelled like exhaust, roasted coffee, and rain that had not fallen yet. Health Plus Pharmacy sat between a bank branch and a real estate office with bright blue signs in the window. Affordable luxury. Neighborhood renewal. Security cameras watched from above the pharmacy door. One turned with a faint mechanical click as Evelyn approached. She saw Dr. Lena Brooks behind the counter through the glass, speaking to a customer, her white coat bright under fluorescent lights. Lena glanced up and recognized Evelyn. Her expression changed almost too fast to catch. Relief first, then worry. Evelyn stepped toward the automatic doors. Behind her, a police radio crackled from the curb. Malloy had returned to his patrol car. He was looking straight at her now, through the windshield, his sunglasses hiding his eyes. He lifted the radio to his mouth. Evelyn could not hear the first words, only the last 3 as the pharmacy doors opened. "I've got another one." The automatic doors opened with a soft sigh, and Evelyn Carter stepped in a Health Plus pharmacy with Officer Malloy's last words still hanging behind her like exhaust. "I've got another one." She did not turn around. She only tightened her fingers around the strap of her purse and walked beneath the security camera mounted above the entrance. The little black lens followed her for half a second, clicked, then held steady on the doorway. Evelyn noticed. Most customers never did. Dr. Lena Brooks was behind the counter, sliding a prescription bottle into a paper sleeve for a young mother with a toddler on her hip. She saw Evelyn, and her professional smile faltered. Not enough for the mother to notice. Enough for Evelyn. "Mrs. Carter," Lena said too softly. "Give me 1 minute." Evelyn nodded and moved to the side of the counter, near the blood pressure machine that hummed beside a rack of reading glasses. A man in golf clothes glanced at her, then at the old coat, then back to his phone as if she had been background noise. The toddler dropped a pacifier. Evelyn bent slowly, picked it up with a tissue from the counter, and handed it back to the mother without a word. The mother took it, embarrassed that she had looked suspicious before she looked grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. Evelyn smiled once. Babies drop the important things first. Lena finished with the young mother, then came to Evelyn's side of the counter carrying a small white pharmacy bag. Her eyes kept flicking toward the glass front. Outside, Malloy's patrol car sat at the curb, engine running. "I filled it as soon as the system cleared," Lena said. "Thomas's cardiologist approved the refill this morning." Evelyn accepted the bag with both hands. "Thank you. There's only 30 days, Lena added. "Insurance wouldn't approve 90. 30 days is still 30 mornings." Lena swallowed. She reached under the counter and brought out a white envelope, clean, flat, sealed along the edge with red tape. She kept it low, below the line of sight of the customers in aisle 2. "They dropped this off before we opened," she murmured. "Said you would know where to take it." Evelyn's eyes lowered to the seal. Her face gave away nothing, but the room seemed to narrow around that envelope. "Did anyone else handle it?" Lena shook her head. "Just me. I kept it in the locked drawer." Evelyn looked at the receipt printer beside the register. "Print the pickup receipt with the exact time." Lena blinked. "The medicine receipt? And the envelope custody note you logged when it arrived." The pharmacist stared at her for a fraction too long. People looked different when they realized an old woman knew the names of things they had not expected her to know. "Of course," Lena said, and turned to the terminal. The machine beeped. Paper slid out in a thin white strip. Evelyn watched the timestamp print, then the register number, then Lena's initials. "Front camera, still video, only?" Evelyn asked. Lena's hand stopped above the printer. Outside, through the glass, Malloy opened his car door. "Yes," she said carefully. "No audio." "Why?" Evelyn folded the receipt once, sharp corner to sharp corner, and slid it into the bag beside the medication, not into her purse. "Because people often remember sound wrong when they're afraid." Lena's eyes moved to Evelyn's face. Behind them, the man in golf clothes had stopped pretending to read vitamin labels. A cashier at the far register looked over. The tiny pharmacy speakers played an old soul song, but the air around the counter had gone thin. "Mrs. Carter," Lena whispered. "Do you want me to call someone?" Evelyn slipped the sealed envelope into the pharmacy bag, flat against the box of heart medication. "Not unless I ask." "He's waiting outside." "I know. He's been doing this all week." Evelyn looked through the glass at Malloy. He was leaning against his open door now, watching the entrance as if it belonged to him. "Longer than a week," she said. Lena's expression changed again. This time was not worry. It was recognition of a depth she had not known was there. Evelyn reached for the bag, then paused. "Please don't bend the envelope." Lena nodded quickly. "I won't." The automatic doors opened before Evelyn could step toward them. Malloy walked in, the radio on his shoulder crackling, his boots loud on the tile. Every customer looked up. He pointed at the white bag in Evelyn's hand. "Before you leave, ma'am, I'm going to need to see what you're carrying." Evelyn held the bag gently, close to her coat. "Officer, that is a filled prescription and a sealed document." Malloy smiled like she had just given him the excuse he wanted. "Then you shouldn't mind proving it." "Then you shouldn't mind proving it." Malloy held out his hand, palm up, like Evelyn Carter had walked into Health Plus with contraband instead of heart medicine. The radio on his shoulder crackled once, filling the pharmacy with a rough burst of static. Nobody moved. Dr. Lena Brooks stood behind the counter with the printer receipt still between her fingers. The man in golf clothes lowered his phone. A cashier at register 2 stopped scanning cough drops, the red laser frozen across a box. Evelyn kept the white pharmacy bag close to her coat. "Officer," she said, "the medication was filled here. The receipt is in the bag." "I didn't ask for a speech." Malloy stepped closer. "I asked to see what you're carrying." Lena came around the counter too quickly, then stopped when Malloy's eyes cut toward her. "Officer, I can't confirm that prescription belongs to Mrs. Carter's husband." "Did I ask you?" The words snapped hard enough to make the toddler in aisle 3 go quiet. Lena's mouth closed. Malloy turned back to Evelyn, satisfied by the silence he had just created. "See, this is what happens when people think rules are suggestions." Evelyn's fingers tightened once around the plastic handles, then relaxed. "Rules are not the problem." Malloy gave a short laugh. "You hear that? She's got opinions." A few customers glanced at each other, unsure whether they were supposed to laugh. Nobody did. The automatic doors opened behind Malloy and let in the sound of traffic, then sealed the room again. Evelyn could see his patrol car through the glass, parked crooked at the curb like a warning. Malloy shifted his weight, making the leather on his belt creak. "Here's how this works. You refuse a lawful inspection, I document suspicion. You keep resisting, I take you outside, and we do this in front of everyone." Evelyn looked at his body camera. The red light blinked, steady and small. "Is this a lawful detention?" she asked. Malloy's smile thinned. "There you go again." He reached for the bag. Evelyn did not pull away fast enough to look guilty, but she did not let go either. For one suspended second, the plastic stretched between them. The heart medication pressed against one side. The sealed envelope stayed flat against the other. The handles cut a red line into Evelyn's knuckles. Lena whispered, "Please, don't tear it." Malloy heard her. His eyes dropped to the bag. "What's in here that everybody's so nervous about?" "Medication," Evelyn said. "And a sealed document you have no reason to open." "No reason." He leaned closer, lowering his voice while somehow making it more public. An old woman standing outside a pharmacy with loose pills, fake attitude, and mystery paperwork. That's reason. The man in golf clothes looked away. The cashier looked down. A woman near the vitamins slowly lifted her phone, then lowered it when Malloy glanced over. Power moved through the room without touching anyone. Malloy tugged the bag free. Evelyn's hand opened, not in surrender, but because the plastic was about to rip. He sat on the counter with a slap. The pill bottle inside jumped. The receipt slid halfway out. Lena flinched. "Officer, there's a camera over this register." Malloy looked up at the black dome in the ceiling and smiled. "Good. Then it'll show me doing my job." He plucked the receipt from the bag and unfolded it with exaggerated care. "Thomas Carter," he read. "That your husband?" Evelyn's face stayed calm, but her eyes changed when he said Thomas's name. "Yes." "Convenient." Malloy tapped the paper. "People use sick relatives for sympathy all the time." A low sound moved through the pharmacy. Not quite a gasp, not quite a protest. Evelyn absorbed it without turning. "He needs the morning dose," she said. "Then you should have thought about that before making this difficult." Malloy turned the receipt over, pretending to inspect it. He ignored the timestamp, ignored Lena's initials, ignored the second line printed beneath it in smaller text. Sealed, item logged, 8:04 a.m. His thumb paused over that line for half a second, just long enough for Evelyn to see he had noticed it. Then he folded the receipt wrong, bending the corner sharply. Lena took one step forward. "Please don't damage the paperwork." Malloy's head lifted slowly. "Back behind your counter." Lena froze. Evelyn's phone vibrated inside her purse. Once, then again. Malloy heard it. His eyes sharpened. "You expecting somebody?" Evelyn did not answer. He grabbed the pharmacy bag by its bottom and tilted it toward the counter. The orange bottle rolled out first, then the folded medication guide, then the edge of the sealed white envelope appeared under the fluorescent light. Red tape unbroken. One corner marked in block letters, "Do not bend." Malloy placed 2 fingers on it and smiled like he had finally found the thing that would make her small. "Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting somewhere." Malloy pressed 2 fingers on the sealed white envelope, as if touching it made it his. Evelyn's hand moved before her voice did. She placed her palm gently over the edge, not grabbing, not fighting, just stopping his fingers from sliding beneath the red tape. The pharmacy went so quiet the refrigerator behind the counter sounded suddenly enormous, humming over shelves of insulin, cough syrup, and paper bags waiting for names. Malloy looked at her hand on his and slowly raised his eyes. "Move it." Evelyn did not. "That seal should not be broken by you." A small sound escaped Lena behind the counter. The man in golf clothes shifted backward. The cashier at register, too, stared at the red tape like it had become dangerous. Malloy smiled again, but now there was a flicker under it. Not fear. Irritation. The kind a man feels when a locked door appears where he expected a curtain. "Lady, you don't get to decide what I can touch." "No," Evelyn said. "Procedure does." The word landed harder than it should have. Procedure. Not please. Not don't. Now I'm scared. Malloy's jaw tightened. He slid the envelope out anyway, careful enough to pretend he was not careful. The red strip stayed unbroken. On the top corner, under the fluorescent light, 3 printed words became clear to everyone close enough to read them. Civil Rights Division. Beneath that, smaller letters. Original statement. Do not bend. A whisper moved through aisle 2. Someone said, "Civil rights?" Another voice hushed them. The teenager near the door lifted his phone a little higher. Malloy turned the envelope over fast, trying to make the words disappear by changing the angle. "Could be anything," he said. "People print fake stuff at home every day." Lena stepped forward, voice thin but present. "That came in sealed this morning. I logged it." Malloy pointed at her without looking. "Back up." Evelyn's phone vibrated inside her purse again, the sound small but sharp in the silence. Once. Twice. Malloy heard it. Everyone did. His eyes cut to the purse, then back to the envelope. "That your printer too?" he asked. "Someone coaching you?" Evelyn looked at the envelope, then at the pill bottle lying near the edge of the counter. Thomas's morning dose sat trapped inside plastic while the whole room watched a stranger decide whether her husband's medicine mattered. If you were standing there, what would you think was really inside that envelope? A lie, a complaint, or the one thing this officer was never supposed to touch? Malloy pinched the envelope by one corner and lifted it for the room to see. "Look at this," he announced. "Mystery paperwork, sealed like some kind of federal case." He gave the last words a mocking weight, and a few people flinched because the mockery sounded too close to the truth. Evelyn's eyes stayed on the red seal. "Put it back in a bag." "Or what?" "Or you'll have to explain why you handled it after being told not to." The cashier scanner beeped once by accident. Everyone jumped. Malloy's face hardened at the reaction, as if the room itself had insulted him. He set the envelope flat on the counter, then placed his palm over it, not opening it, owning it. "Here's what I see," he said. "An old woman with a fake legal vocabulary, a nervous pharmacist, and paperwork nobody wants me to read." Lena whispered, "Officer, the receipt shows the time it was logged." Malloy snatched the receipt and slapped it beside the envelope. His thumb smeared the printed line where Lena's initials sat beside the custody note. "This receipt shows what I say it shows." That was when Evelyn's expression changed again. Not fear, memory. Her gaze dropped to Malloy's badge number, 4172, then to his hand covering the seal. Somewhere behind her eyes, an older scene opened. Another counter, another complaint form, another officer saying almost the same words before a file disappeared. Malloy caught her looking at the badge. "What?" he said. "You know me?" Evelyn said nothing. Malloy glanced down at the receipt again, then at the name on the medication, then back at her face. Something in his eyes narrowed. "Carter," he murmured. "Why do I know that name?" The pharmacy air tightened around her. Evelyn's fingers curled once around the strap of her purse. Malloy leaned closer, voice dropping into something colder than anger. "Is this about one of those complaints your family couldn't prove? Is this about one of those complaints your family couldn't prove?" Malloy said it softly, but the pharmacy was quiet enough for every syllable to travel. The words moved through Evelyn Carter like a hand reaching into an old wound and pressing down. Her eyes did not close. Her shoulders did not shake. Only her thumb moved, brushing the cracked leather strap of her purse where Thomas's empty pill bottle rested inside, beside the phone that had gone silent again. Malloy noticed the stillness and mistook it for weakness. "That's what this is, isn't it?" he said, louder now. Some old grudge dressed up in fancy paper. The man in golf clothes looked at the envelope under Malloy's palm, then at Evelyn. Dr. Lena Brooks lowered her eyes. The cashier's hand hovered above the scanner, frozen over a box of children's cough syrup. No one understood what Malloy had just touched, not really. But they understood cruelty when it found a private place and dragged it into public. Evelyn looked at the name printed on the prescription bottle. Thomas Carter, morning dose. Her husband's medicine waited 3 feet away, close enough to see, too far to reach. Then another name rose in her mind. Nathan Carter, her son, 31 years old, standing beside his own car under blue lights. Palms spread on the hood, though he had done nothing but drive home from work. She remembered his voice on the phone that night, trying to sound grown while fear broke through the edges. "Mama, don't come down here. I don't want them looking at you, too." She'd gone anyway. She remembered the station lobby smelling like burnt coffee and floor wax. She remembered the complaint form sliding across a counter. She remembered a sergeant with tired eyes saying, "We'll review it." And 6 weeks later, she remembered the letter. Unsubstantiated. No policy violation found. A word that sounded clean until you understood it meant buried. Malloy tapped the envelope with 2 fingers. People file complaints all the time. Doesn't make them true. Evelyn's gaze lifted to him. "No," she said, "but it means someone had to survive long enough to write one." A small shift passed through the room. The woman near the vitamins lowered her phone, not because she stopped recording, but because her hand had started to tremble. The toddler's mother hugged her child closer. Lena looked up, and shame crossed her face before fear covered it again. Malloy's jaw flexed. He did not like the room hearing Evelyn sound calm. He wanted anger. Anger was easier to arrest. "Careful," he said. "You're getting close to obstruction." Evelyn did not move. "I'm standing in a pharmacy waiting for my husband's medication." "You're interfering with an inquiry." "You created the inquiry." The sentence was quiet. It still made the cashier inhale. Malloy's eyes hardened. He turned the receipt toward himself again, scanning the printed lines as if searching for a way to make the paper obey him. His thumb paused over Lena's initials, then over the small custody note. He folded it sharply, hiding the line from the room. Evelyn saw the fold. So did Lena. So did the teenager by the door, whose phone was now angled toward the counter instead of Malloy's face. A tiny detail, almost nothing, the kind of thing that had been missed too many times before. Malloy lifted the envelope off the counter and held it up between 2 fingers. "Here's what's going to happen," he announced. "I'm going to secure this suspicious document. I'm going to secure the medication. And Mrs. Carter here is going to explain why she's carrying paperwork meant to intimidate a police officer." Evelyn's hand tightened once on her purse strap. Inside, her phone vibrated again. This time she did not reach for it. Malloy heard it and smiled. "Still waiting for your backup?" Evelyn looked past him through the glass doors to the curb where his patrol car sat crooked under the pharmacy sign. "No," she said. "I'm waiting for you to stop making this worse." The smile left his face. He grabbed the pharmacy bag, dropped the prescription bottle and envelope inside, then folded the top over like he had just closed the case. His radio crackled. He pressed the button with his thumb, eyes still on Evelyn. "Dispatch, send a supervisor to Health Plus," he said. "Possible obstruction. Possible fabricated federal document. Same Carter family complaint nonsense." The word supervisor hit the room like a stamp on wet ink. Lena took 1 step forward. "Officer, please don't misstate." Malloy cut her off without looking. "You'll give your statement when I ask for it." Then he pointed to the middle of the tile floor, away from the counter, away from the medicine, away from the envelope. "Mrs. Carter, stand there where everyone can see you. Mrs. Carter, stand there where everyone can see you." Malloy pointed to the open tile between the pharmacy counter and the automatic doors, the place every customer had to pass to leave. Evelyn Carter looked at the spot, then at the white pharmacy bag folded shut in his hand. Thomas's medication was inside. So was the sealed envelope. She walked where he pointed, not because he owned the room, but because pulling against him would give him the picture he wanted. The rubber soles of her soft shoes made no sound on the tile. That silence seemed to bother him. "Hands where I can see them," Malloy said. Evelyn lifted her hands slowly, palms open, empty. The man in golf clothes stared at the floor. The young mother pulled her toddler closer to the greeting card rack. The teenager near the door kept filming, his phone half hidden against his chest. Malloy saw him. "Put that away." The boy's thumb hesitated. Malloy took one step toward him. "Now." The phone lowered, but the red recording stayed alive against the boy's sweatshirt. Dr. Lena Brooks saw it and looked away fast, pretending not to. The radio on Malloy's shoulder burst to life. "Superviseur en route." The words made him stand straighter. He turned back to Evelyn, wearing the message like a second badge. "You hear that? Now we do this properly." Evelyn's eyes moved from his radio to the security dome above the register. The tiny light on the camera housing blinked green. Still recording. Malloy noticed her glance and smiled. "Don't worry. Cameras help honest people. They help patient people too," Evelyn said. His smile tightened. The automatic doors opened again, and Sergeant Cole stepped in with the tired authority of a man who had already decided whose story would be easiest to believe. Gray hair, broad shoulders, hand resting near his belt. His eyes swept the room, passed over Evelyn, paused on Malloy, then landed on the pharmacy bag. "What do we have?" Malloy lifted the bag slightly. Suspicious medication possession. Possible fabricated federal document. Refusal to comply. Same family that filed that complaint last year. Cole's expression barely changed, but Evelyn saw the small flicker in his eyes. Recognition, not of her as a person, of a problem he thought had been buried. Lena stepped forward. "Sergeant, that prescription was filled here, and the envelope was logged before Mrs. Carter arrived. I can show you the receipt and the camera." "Doctor," Cole said, polite enough to be dangerous, "you'll preserve whatever footage we request through proper channels." "But you should see it now." "Proper channels," he repeated, and the words shut her down harder than shouting would have. Malloy looked pleased. He set the pharmacy bag on the counter beneath the camera, then laid the folded receipt beside it with the custody line hidden inside the crease. The sealed envelope stayed tucked under the medication box, one red corner showing. "Mrs. Carter," Cole said, finally facing her, "Officer Malloy says you refused a lawful order." Evelyn kept her hands open at her sides. "He has not stated the law behind the order." A whisper moved through the aisle. Cole's jaw worked once. Malloy jumped in before the whisper could grow. "She keeps playing attorney. That's the problem." "No," Evelyn said quietly. "The problem is you keep changing the accusation." For the first time, the room felt the shape of that sentence. Even Cole heard it. His eyes went to Malloy, just for a second. Malloy felt the glance and hardened. Enough. He picked up the pharmacy bag again and held it higher, making sure everyone could see it. This is how people intimidate police now. They print fancy words, wave papers around, and expect us to back down. Evelyn looked at the bag, not at him. "My husband's medicine is in there, and it will stay secured until I decide what it is." Lena's face went pale. "Officer, that is heart medication." Malloy turned on her. "One more word, and I add interference." The pharmacy went still. Cole did not correct him. That silence gave Malloy everything he needed. He stepped toward Evelyn with the bag in one hand and his cuffs in the other. The metal clicked loose from his belt, bright under the fluorescent lights. The teenager's phone rose a fraction again. The camera above the register blinked green. Evelyn did not move. Malloy smiled as if the room had finally become his. "Let's make sure everybody understands what happens when someone refuses to cooperate. Let's make sure everybody understands what happens when someone refuses to cooperate." Malloy let the cuffs hang from one finger so the metal could catch the fluorescent light. The sound was small, a clean silver click, but it traveled through Health Plus like a verdict. Evelyn Carter stood in the open tile with her hands visible, her brown coat hanging loose at the shoulders, her eyes on the white pharmacy bag in his other hand. He had placed Thomas's medicine and the sealed envelope together, turning both into something he could control. "Turn around," he said. Evelyn did not move fast enough for him. Not because she was resisting, because 72-year-old knees do not obey humiliation on command. Malloy stepped behind her and took her wrist. The teenager by the door stopped breathing through his mouth. Dr. Lena Brooks gripped the edge of the counter until her knuckles lost color. Sergeant Cole watched, silent, his face closed like an office door. "Officer," Evelyn said, calm enough to make the room ache, "my husband's morning dose is in that bag." Malloy snapped one cuff around her left wrist. The sound made the toddler in aisle 3 start to cry. "Then maybe next time," Malloy said, loud enough for every customer to hear, "you'll think before bringing fake federal paperwork into my scene." Evelyn looked toward the counter. The pill bottle lay visible through the thin plastic, orange against white. Thomas Carter's name turned sideways. The red corner of the sealed envelope peeked beneath it like a warning nobody wanted to read. Malloy lifted the bag higher, showing it to the room. "This is what they do now," he said. "They hide behind sick husbands, printed seals, old complaints, and expect a badge to get scared." A woman near the vitamins whispered, "She's in cuffs." The man in golf clothes looked at her sharply, then looked away, ashamed of being seen hearing it. Malloy caught the whisper and smiled wider. "No, ma'am. She's being detained. There's a difference." Evelyn turned her head slightly, enough to see the security camera above the register. Its green light still blinked. Malloy followed her eyes and stepped sideways, placing his shoulder between the camera and the bag. "Don't worry about the camera," he said. "It'll show exactly what I need it to show." Lena's breath hitched. The teenager's phone rose again, barely an inch. Cole saw it this time. "Son," he said, not unkindly, which made it worse, "put the phone down before this becomes your problem too." The phone lowered, but not all the way. A red dot still glowed in the fold of the boy's hoodie. Malloy tightened his hand around Evelyn's cuffed wrist, not hard enough to leave a mark anyone would photograph, hard enough to make her fingers curl once. She did not cry out. She did not give him the sound he wanted. "You should not have touched that envelope," she said. One sentence. Quiet. Precise. Malloy laughed through his nose. There it is again. The envelope. He set the pharmacy bag on the counter, pulled the sealed document halfway out, and held it up between two fingers as if it were dirty. "You want everybody to see your little prop? Fine." The red tape remained unbroken. Civil Rights Division showed clearly now. Original statement. Do not bend. A hush passed through the room, thinner than silence, but heavier than noise. Malloy felt it and attacked it. "Anybody can print words," he said. "Anybody can pretend they matter." He tapped the envelope against his palm. "But on this sidewalk, in this district, I decide what matters." Sergeant Cole's eyes flicked toward him. Too late. The words were already in the air, already caught by the green camera light, already held inside the teenager's phone. Evelyn looked at Malloy then, really looked at him, with no hatred in her face. Only a tired sorrow that made him angrier than fear would have. "No, officer," she said. "You decide what you write down, not what happened." The pharmacy doors slid open behind them, but no customer walked in. A low engine sound rolled up from the curb, deeper than Malloy's patrol car. Then another. Then a third. The glass front of Health Plus darkened as three black SUVs pulled against the sidewalk, their reflections swallowing the pharmacy lights. Malloy turned his head, still holding the envelope, as the first door opened outside. The first SUV door opened outside Health Plus Pharmacy, and the room forgot how to breathe. It was not the sound that stopped everyone. It was the way the sound did not belong there. Not the thin slam of Malloy's patrol car. Not the tired rattle of a city sedan. This was heavier, deeper, official in a way even people who had never seen a federal badge could feel in their bones. One black SUV blocked the curb. Then another. Then a third. Their tinted windows reflected the pharmacy sign until the bright green letters looked swallowed by dark glass. Malloy still held the sealed envelope between two fingers. His other hand still gripped Evelyn Carter's cuffed wrist. But his head had turned toward the doors, and for the first time since he entered the pharmacy, he did not speak. The automatic doors slid open. A woman in a navy suit stepped in first. Close-cropped dark hair. No Ismail. No Rus. Her shoes crossed the tile with a calm that made Malloy's boots seem loud in memory. Two men followed behind her, both in dark jackets, both scanning the pharmacy without looking impressed by the badge on Malloy's chest. A fourth stayed outside, near the SUVs, one hand near his earpiece, eyes on the sidewalk. The teenager's phone rose from his hoodie again. This time Sergeant Cole did not tell him to lower it. The woman in the navy suit looked first at Evelyn's cuffed wrist, then at the pharmacy bag on the counter, then at the sealed envelope in Malloy's hand. Her gaze stopped there, not confused, not curious, recognizing. The air changed. Dr. Lena Brooks slowly released the counter. The man in golf clothes took one careful step backward, as if distance could erase which side he had stood on. The toddler had stopped crying and now clung silently to her mother's coat. The pharmacy speakers kept playing the old soul song, but it sounded far away, like it was coming from another building. Malloy cleared his throat. This is an active police matter. His voice came out too loud. The woman in the navy suit did not answer immediately. She reached into her jacket and brought out a flat leather credential case. The movement was small. The effect was not. The gold seal caught the fluorescent light. Department of Justice. The cashier's scanner gave one accidental beep and then went dead quiet. Cole's face drained, not fully, just enough for Evelyn to see the blood leave the certainty. Malloy's fingers tightened around the envelope. The red seal bent slightly under his thumb. Evelyn saw it. So did the woman in the navy suit. Before anyone speaks next, look at what is in that room. A grandmother in cuffs, a heart medication bottle trapped on a counter, a sealed document in the wrong hands, and 3 black SUVs outside a pharmacy. Who do you think is about to learn what that envelope really means? Malloy recovered just enough to lift his chin. Who called you? The woman's eyes moved from the envelope to him. Officer Malloy. She said his name like she had read it before walking through the door. Malloy blinked. You have my name because it's on my uniform. No, she said. I have your name because it's in a file. The sentence landed softly. That made it worse. The room did not explode. It contracted. A woman near the vitamins lowered her hand to her mouth. Lena looked at Evelyn, then at the cuff around her wrist, and something like understanding began to fight its way through fear. Sergeant Cole stepped forward half an inch. Mom, Sergeant Cole. If there's a federal concern, we can move this conversation outside and coordinate through. Do not move anything, the woman said. Cole stopped. Not because she yelled, because she did not. One of the agents behind her looked up at the ceiling camera, then at the teenager's phone, then at Malloy's body camera. Red light, green light, red duck. 3 witnesses blinking in silence. Malloy noticed the agent noticing. He pulled his hand with the envelope closer to his chest. This document may be evidence in a local obstruction inquiry. The woman in the navy suit took one step closer. That document was not yours to handle. Malloy laughed once, short and dry. With respect, you don't know what happened here. Evelyn stood beside him, one wrist cuffed, the other hand open at her side. She had not said a word since the SUVs arrived. She did not need to. Her stillness had become the loudest thing in the pharmacy. The woman looked at her then, and her face changed for the first time. Not softness exactly. Respect. Quiet. Controlled. The kind people give when they know someone has carried weight without dropping it. Malloy saw that look and hated it. She's being detained, he said quickly. She refused lawful instructions, carried suspicious paperwork, and attempted to interfere with my investigation. The woman's eyes returned to him. Behind her, one agent opened a tablet. A pale screen lit his face. He tapped twice. The little loading circle spun. Malloy's voice thinned. You can check with my sergeant. Cole did not speak. The tablet stopped loading. The agent looked at the woman in the navy suit and gave one small nod. The entire pharmacy seemed to lean toward her. She took one more step, close enough now that Malloy had to look slightly down at the credential in her hand and then back up at her face. Officer Malloy, she said, each word clean and slow. Take your hand off Mrs. Carter. Now, for half a second, Officer Malloy did not move. His hand stayed locked around Evelyn Carter's cuffed wrist, and the sealed envelope stayed pinched in his other hand, bent slightly under his thumb. The woman in the navy suit took one step closer. Not fast, not angry. Certain. Now, she said again. Malloy's fingers opened. Evelyn's wrist slipped free, but the cuff still hung from it, silver against her brown coat sleeve. The sound of that little chain brushing fabric made Dr. Lena Brooks close her eyes. One of the men behind the woman stepped forward. Officer, placed the document on the counter. Malloy stared at him. I don't take orders from. The woman opened her credential case fully. Special Agent Marisol Grant, Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. The words moved through the pharmacy like the air had found new direction. The teenager's phone rose higher. Sergeant Cole stopped breathing through his nose. Malloy looked from the gold seal to the SUVs outside, then to Evelyn, as if trying to make the scene become smaller by refusing to understand it. Civil rights? He said. For a pharmacy disturbance. Agent Grant's eyes did not leave him. For a federal witness. The room went still in a different way now. Not confusion. Recognition beginning to arrive too late. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. The man in golf clothes lowered his eyes, as if the tile had suddenly become interesting. Evelyn did not smile. She did not lift her chin. She only stood there with one wrist cuffed, breathing evenly, like she had promised herself long ago that when the truth finally entered a room, she would not decorate it with pride. Malloy's voice cracked around the edges. She's not a witness. She's interfering with my lawful. Stop using that word, Grant said. You have not stated a lawful basis once. The first dialogue punch hit him clean. Behind Grant, an agent opened a tablet and turned it outward just enough for Malloy and Cole to see. A case number glowed at the top of the screen. Beneath it, Evelyn Carter. Protected witness contact. Health Plus transfer point. Below, there was a photograph of Officer Derek Malloy beside a list of complaint entries, dates, and locations. His face changed before he could stop it. Grant saw it. Everyone saw it. That envelope, she said, pointing to the sealed document still hovering in Malloy's hand, is an original statement packet scheduled for federal intake this morning. It was logged at this pharmacy at 8:04 a.m. By Dr. Lena Brooks. Your fingerprints are now on the outside of a protected evidence packet after Mrs. Carter told you not to touch it. Malloy looked down at the envelope like it had grown teeth. Lena found her voice, thin but clear. I printed the custody note. It's on the receipt. Grant turned slightly. Do you still have your register copy? Lena nodded quickly. Yes. Preserve it. One of the agents moved to the counter and put on blue gloves. He did not snatch the envelope from Malloy. He held out an evidence sleeve and waited. That waiting humiliated Malloy more than force would have. Slowly, with every customer watching, Malloy placed the envelope into the sleeve. The red seal was still intact, though creased near one corner. The agent read the number aloud. Grant matched it on the tablet. Confirmed. The second pillar landed. Evidence. System. Witness. Authority. Malloy reached for the language that had always worked before. She refused to cooperate. She had suspicious material. My body cam will show. Good, Grant said. You will surrender the body cam footage before you leave this room. The second dialogue punch froze him mid-breath. Cole finally stepped forward. Agent Grant, we can handle internal review and provide copies through the usual request process. Grant turned to him with a calm, so sharp it felt like glass. Sergeant Cole, the usual process is part of what we are reviewing. The third punch changed the room completely. A sound rose from somewhere near the greeting cards, a quiet "oh my God," and nobody corrected it. The teenager stepped closer, still filming. I got him saying he decides what matters, he said, voice shaking. Malloy turned on him. Put that down. Grant's head snapped toward Malloy. Do not threaten a witness recording a public incident. Malloy's mouth shut. For the first time all morning, his badge looked small. The agent beside Evelyn unlocked the cuff from her wrist. The metal opened with a click softer than when it closed, but somehow louder. Evelyn rubbed the red mark once, then stopped, refusing to make pain the center of the moment. Grant faced her fully. Mrs. Carter, are you injured? Evelyn looked at the pharmacy bag on the counter, at Thomas's orange pill bottle still trapped inside. My husband needs his medication. Lena was already moving. She picked up the bottle with both hands and brought it around the counter like an offering. Evelyn accepted it gently. The room watched a grandmother receive medicine as if it were more powerful than any badge in the building. Grant turned back to Cole. Sergeant, secure Officer Malloy's duty weapon according to your policy, preserve his radio logs, and notify your command that DOJ is taking custody of all footage connected to this incident. Cole's face tightened. All footage. Grant's eyes moved to the green pharmacy camera, the red body cam light, and the phone in the teenager's hand. Every second. Then she looked at Malloy, who was still standing where he had tried to make Evelyn small. And we will need every complaint your department dismissed under badge number 4172. Sergeant Cole did not answer right away. The request hung in the pharmacy, heavier than the badge on Malloy's chest, heavier than the cuffs now lying open on the counter. Every complaint your department dismissed under badge number 4172. For years, those words had lived in drawers, in inboxes, in stamped envelopes that told families nothing could be proven. Now they had been spoken out loud in front of customers, cameras, a pharmacist, a teenager with shaking hands, and a woman who had survived long enough to bring the truth to the right door. Cole looked at Malloy, then at Agent Grant. Those files are department property. Grant did not blink. Then preserve them like evidence. One of her agents was already photographing the pharmacy counter. The white bag, the orange pill bottle, the folded receipt, the evidence sleeve holding the sealed envelope. Another agent stood beneath the green security light, speaking quietly with Lena about the camera system. No one rushed. No one shouted. That was what made it feel final. Malloy's face had gone tight and pale, but not humbled. Not yet. Men like him did not fall all at once. They reached for one more rule, one more excuse, one more person who used to protect them. Sergeant, he said, turning toward Cole. You know what this is? She baited me. They all did. That kid was recording before he knew anything. The teenager stiffened near the greeting cards. Evelyn turned her head, just slightly, toward him. You did nothing wrong, she said. The boy swallowed hard, and something in his shoulders loosened. Agent Grant looked at Malloy. You are relieved from contact with witnesses connected to this matter. Malloy tried to laugh. You can't just walk in and take over a local stop. Cole finally spoke, but not the way Malloy expected. Derek. One word. Low. Warning. The room shifted again. Malloy looked at him, as if betrayal had sound. Cole's hand moved slowly to his radio. Dispatch. Show Officer Malloy unavailable for duty pending supervisory review. Malloy stared. Are you serious? Badge and weapon. Cole said, quieter now. On the counter. The pharmacy went so still that the old soul song from the ceiling speakers seemed disrespectful. Malloy did not move. For a long second, all anyone heard was the compressor behind the vaccine cooler and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Then Malloy unclipped his badge. The metal touched the counter with a small, dull sound. Not dramatic. Not enough for everything he had done, but it was the first sound of power being taken back. His duty weapon followed under Cole's instruction, handled carefully, without spectacle. Agent Grant watched every movement. Body camera, she said. Malloy's jaw worked. It's department equipment, and footage connected to a federal civil rights investigation. Cole looked away first. Malloy removed the camera from his uniform. When he placed it beside the badge, its red light still blinked. Lena let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like years. Grant turned to her. Dr. Brooks, we'll need the full exterior and register footage preserved from opening until now. Lena nodded quickly. Yes, I'll copy it immediately. Her voice shook. Then she looked at Evelyn. Mrs. Carter, I'm sorry. Evelyn held Thomas's medication in both hands. She could have made Lena smaller with one sentence. She could have asked why a locked drawer had been braver than the woman standing beside it. Instead, she said, next time, open the door sooner. Lena's eyes filled, and she nodded like she had been given both mercy and an assignment. Outside, more people had gathered near the SUVs, phones out, faces pressed with curiosity against the morning. But inside the pharmacy, the lesson was not for the crowd. It was for the system that had taught good people to wait until permission felt safe. Agent Grant stepped beside Evelyn, lowering her voice. Mrs. Carter, We could take you out through the side door if you'd prefer. Evelyn looked through the glass front. The sidewalk where Malloy had tried to make her disappear was still there. The curb. The pharmacy sign. The place where her husband's pill bottle had nearly rolled into traffic. No, she said. I came through the front. Grant accepted that with a small nod. Cole stood by the counter, older somehow, listening as one agent requested complaint files, radio logs, dispatch records, and prior incident reports under Malloy's badge number. The words sounded bureaucratic. They also sounded like doors opening in rooms that had been locked too long. Malloy said nothing now. His hands hung empty at his sides. Evelyn walked to the counter and picked up the torn white pharmacy bag. Lena reached for a new one, clean and unwrinkled. She placed Thomas's medication inside it carefully, then added the receipt, flat and unbent. Evelyn accepted it. The bag was light, but the room treated it like something sacred. Grant looked at her again. Are you ready to leave? Evelyn glanced at Malloy, then at Cole, then at the cameras still blinking above them. Not yet, she said. My husband needs his medicine. But after that, I want you to look at everyone who let him keep doing this. 3 weeks later, the automatic doors of Health Plus Pharmacy opened before Evelyn Carter reached them. Not because a sensor caught her shadow, because Dr. Lena Brooks had seen her crossing the sidewalk and stepped out from behind the counter herself. For one quiet second, Evelyn stood in the same place where Officer Malloy had shoved her against the glass, the same strip of concrete where Thomas's pill bottle had rolled toward the curb. Morning sun touched the pharmacy windows. Traffic moved past. A bus sighed at the corner. Nothing looked dramatic enough for what had happened there, and maybe that was the point. The places where people are humiliated do not stay marked unless someone chooses to remember. Lena held the door open with both hands. Good morning, Mrs. Carter. Her voice was steady now, though her eyes were not. Evelyn looked at the doorway, then at Lena. Good morning, doctor. No one said the old words. No one said get out. Inside, the pharmacy smelled of paper bags, disinfectant, and coffee from the little machine Lena had started keeping near the staff door for elderly patients waiting on refills. A new sign stood on the counter in a simple black frame. Every patient deserves dignity. Under it, in smaller letters. If you need help, ask us before you call the police. Evelyn read it slowly. Lena watched her read it. It's not enough, Lena said. Evelyn nodded. No. Then she looked at the line of chairs near the window, where an older man with a cane sat beside a woman counting coins into her palm. But it's a start. Lena brought out a clean white pharmacy bag. Not torn, not wrinkled, not held like evidence. Held like care. Thomas's refill. 30 days again, but I'm working with the cardiologist on the longer approval. Evelyn accepted the bag with both hands. The paper receipt was inside, flat and unbent. The medication label faced up. Thomas Carter. Morning dose. This time, no one questioned whether it belonged to him. Near the greeting card rack, the teenager who had filmed the incident was taping a small blue flyer to the community board. His name was Marcus, Evelyn had learned later. 17 years old, quiet around adults, braver than he thought. The flyer listed a civil rights reporting hotline and the date of a community meeting at the church basement. Marcus saw Evelyn watching and straightened like he had been caught doing something wrong. Agent Grant said these were okay to post, he said quickly. Evelyn smiled. Then post them straight. He blinked, then grinned and fixed the crooked edge. Outside, the curb looked wider without Malloy's patrol car blocking it. His badge number no longer appeared on the neighborhood patrol list. That much the news had said. What the news did not show were the older complaints being reopened, the radio logs pulled, the officers suddenly remembering details they had forgotten, the families receiving calls they had stopped hoping for. Justice did not arrive like thunder after the SUVs left. It arrived like paperwork, signatures, hard questions, and doors that could no longer be closed quietly. Evelyn had given 2 more statements since that morning. She had not enjoyed any of them. Truth was heavy even when it was finally believed. Lena walked around the counter and stopped a respectful distance away. I should have opened the door, she said. Evelyn looked at her for a long moment. Yes, she said. Lena nodded, tears bright but not falling. Evelyn softened her voice. So open it for the next person. A bell chimed behind them. The older man with the cane struggled to stand, trying to hold his prescription slip and his wallet at the same time. Before he could drop either, Marcus moved first. Lena moved too. The man looked surprised when two people reached him before he had to ask. Evelyn watched them help him to the counter, and something inside her loosened that had been tight for years. Not healed, not erased, loosened. She carried Thomas's medicine home in the clean white bag, walking slowly past the coffee shop, the bank, the windows that reflected a woman who looked ordinary to anyone in a hurry. At home, Thomas was waiting in his chair by the kitchen window, pretending he had not been watching the street. "You got it?" he asked. Evelyn set the bag on the table between them. "I got it." He touched the side of the bag, then her wrist, where the mark from the cuff had faded but not disappeared. And the rest. Evelyn opened the drawer beneath the old family photograph and placed a copy of the new community flyer beside Nathan's dismissed complaint letter. Old pain. New proof. Same drawer. Different ending. "The rest is moving," she said. Thomas looked at her, tired eyes warm. "You came through the front?" Evelyn smiled then, small and real. Both ways. Outside, the afternoon light settled over the neighborhood. A bus hissed at the corner. Somewhere, a door opened for someone who used to be ignored. And in a quiet kitchen, a grandmother poured water into a glass, placed one small pill in her husband's palm, and proved that dignity, once protected, could become medicine for more than one heart.